In this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate two different things. We're going to start with the constant width fillet, and then we'll move into edge selection and the fillet expert. Let's open up a file from your Chapter 5 Working Files folder. Open up the constant width part. Let's roll back these last two fillet features. What we have here is really just two identical lofts, and the geometry that's important here is that one end of the loft is sharp and pointy, and the other end of the loft, the angle between the faces is greatly increased, making this edge much less pointy at this end than at the other end. So if you put a normal fillet on here, just a regular old constant radius default fillet, and you increase the radius value a little bit, you can see what's happening already. On the sharp pointy end, the fillet is eroding the point. And on the end that's less pointy, the fillet is diminishing. So when you create the fillet, it has the effect of really reducing the ridge that goes down through the loft. There is a type of fillet that allows us a little more control than this. Let's start up the fillet command and move to face fillet this time. Again, with a face fillet, you click on one side, right click, and then click the other side. Well, this is giving us the same exact kind of fillet that we got before, but that's because we haven't used the good option. The option here is constant width, and it's only available in a face fillet. So you notice that even though the radius value at the pointy end is much smaller than the radius value on the not pointy end, the width of the fillet remains the same. And so it has less effect of eroding that ridge that goes down through the feature. So the constant width fillet is a handy one when the angle between faces changes. Now let's move on to the fillet expert and edge selection for fillets. Let's open up the fillet expert part. We got a few fillet features on here, but let's remove these. One of the things we've been seeing and haven't talked much about is the fact that when I select on an edge, I get this little toolbar that comes up. Sometimes this has handy stuff, and sometimes not so much. Let's make use of this. I want to create a fillet, so I can start the command right from there. Next, I'll switch to the constant radius. Now I'm going to select another edge, and I get a different toolbar. This one allows me to select groups of edges. So this is selecting all the edges within this particular cavity. This is all the edges within all of the cavities in this particular part. This includes inside and outside edges. You can see that SOLIDWORKS is giving you a tooltip explanation of the logic behind why it's selecting what's shown on the screen. Sometimes it's just too overwhelming and you can't even imagine trying to fillet all of the edges on a part at once. But I think the best choice for what we're trying to do here is this option, because this gets all of the inside corners of all of the cavities on this side of the part. This functionality used to be part of the fillet expert, but now it's just part of normal SOLIDWORKS functionality. If we switch over to the fillet expert, we've got three tabs here. One is for adding fillets, the second one is for changing fillets, and the third one is for corner treatments where fillets run over one another. The whole idea between the fillet expert is to help you create a lot of fillets at once and to work through the troubleshooting issues that a large number of fillets often creates. So if we change to the fillet expert, go to the Add tab, click on this edge, we get a very similar set of choices. I think we get a few more options this time. Next time we come back to this, it's not going to be an automated option. It will just show you all of these edges set up already selected in this feature. If you were to select all of those manually, that would take you an awful long time. SOLIDWORKS has a few other options for selecting fillets, and some of these are easy to understand and some a little less so. If you select a face, SOLIDWORKS is going to fillet all of the edges that are around that face. If you select on the back side, it's going to pick up the outside edges and the inside edges. By default, if you select an edge that has tangencies, then SOLIDWORKS is going to propagate to all the tangent edges. You can turn that setting off, but your feature may fail. Another thing that you can do that's available to you is use the right mouse button selection options. We have things like Select Tangency and Select Loop, as well as clear selections. So selecting tangency will explicitly select all of those edges, and you don't need the tangent propagation at that point. Let's clear the selections. If you right-click on this face and you say Select Loop, there are two different options for selecting a loop. Every edge connects to two faces, and each face is its own loop. Choosing the arrow pointing down means that it's going around this face. And if I switch the arrow the other way, it's going around this loop, around the outside. This may be a little difficult to visualize with the fillets already on there. Let's move to the back where we can do this more easily. Right-click, select loop. So here it's selecting this loop. Change the arrow, now it's selecting the loop on top. So loop selection can be important. You can also select edges by dragging a window. And if you want to get the view pre-positioned correctly, you can limit the selection more easily to just, say, these edges on the top. You can also use the filters. Filters are available using F5, and you have filters for edges, faces, and other types of entities that you may not need while selecting edges for fillet features. Let's look at a couple other selection options. One that's underused possibly is the fact that you can select a feature. So let's find this extrusion on top. Not that one, but this one. SOLIDWORKS will fillet all of the corners on that feature with the same radius. Now, SOLIDWORKS uses the words fillet and round interchangeably. Notice that this feature adds material on the inside corners and removes material from the outside corners in the same feature. We get a little sloppy with our terminology, but it all means the same thing. So there are a lot of things that you can do to help you select edges for fillets, especially in plastic parts where you may have to select hundreds and hundreds of edges.